You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. In this show, we go beyond the campfire stories to bring you firsthand encounters from people who say they've seen something impossible, from backwoods trails and remote mountain haulers to quiet farms and crowded highways. The stories come from everywhere, and each one leaves us with more questions than answers. These are the voices of the people who've lived it, so settle in, because today you'll hear another account that just might change the way you see the woods forever. So stay with us. All right, Bigfoot Society, you've got the privilege of talking to Jesse today. Jesse is a hunter and a forestry contractor from down in Van Buren County in Iowa, down the southeast section of the state. I've actually been on Jesse's show, which is called Beast of Burden. So I'll definitely have that linked. You can check that out, as I don't do a ton of interviews, but it was fun chatting with him on his podcast as well. But welcome to the show, Jesse. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. You know, I'm excited to have you on the show. Finally, your area really has an interesting history to it. There's a lot that's happened over the years, and I actually haven't told you this yet, but I did have an older gentleman, come on TikTok recently to share some Class A encounters that happened in Lacey Keosauqua State Park down there in Van Buren. That'll be coming out eventually. Awesome. But yeah, I mean, I would love to hear, you know, if you wouldn't mind sharing what you've experienced. You've had some really interesting things happen over the years down there in Van Buren County.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been kind of a wild ride. I'll just start from the beginning, if that's okay, and kind of go to more recent events. So I'll be honest, when we first moved down to Van Buren, I was kind of a Bigfoot nut. I mean, everything when I was, 12, 13, I was just looking for it because I just want to have that experience real bad. You know, you watch all the shows. I'll be honest, we just discussed this too, just to be totally straightforward. Some of my earlier experiences, I can go like, well, did I really see something? But at the same time, it stuck with me for so long. I'm like, did I? It's one of those things like, did I experience that? Or was my head? But why is it stuck with me if I can't brush it off? So I'll share a couple of those earlier moments. I was taking a dog for a walk on our family farm in the back, and it was, I think, springtime. And some of our deciduous trees, like our shingle oak and ironwood, hang on to their leaves. And I bring that just for pattern's sake. And I was walking back, and I see this outline, and it was really neat because the color matched, but it also contrasted against these trees hanging on to their leaves. And what I saw was like this pretty good sized thing that looked like Cousin It. It had a blended color to it. Like I could see from the knees up, it was black, and then kind of a lighter brown color. Then the cuffs around its wrist were like a blondish color, and the head was more blondish, but it had this interesting color, tritone of colors, but it stuck out. Like it looked like someone standing there against these trees, and it really shocked me. I'm like 13, I just run. Now it's very possible that my mind wanted to see it. I was just taking my dog for a walk. I remember running back to the house, and I recall along our drive, we have a bunch of cedar trees. Now they're, 20 feet tall. They've grown up so much the past, 15 years, 20 years. I recall seeing this, that coconut conical shaped head bobbing along the treetops. And I went inside and nothing happened. And again, could have been an adrenaline rush and going, man, I think I made that up. But I'm like, I remember that so distinctly, So that was a really profound moment. And over the years, I was, typing up my sightings and submitting them to you just for safekeeping, honestly. And I was like, man, that really stuck with me. I thought I'd bring it up. Another moment, this happened about, summertime, the next encounter. I was alone a lot. My parents, my dad worked out of state. My mom worked in town. I was homeschooled. So get your schoolwork done. You go do chores and mow the yard, stuff like that. And it's a hot summer day. It's like July. I'm out there mowing the yard, and I look over, and I recall seeing like this ape-shaped looking face, like a silhouette, looking at me underneath the branches of this oak tree on the west side of our yard. And it startled me. I ran inside. I'm like, what was that? I'm looking out the window, and this shape is gone. Now, it's very likely it could have been the light of the sun shining on the leaves. But I remember looking at that ape-ish human-looking face just at me. with this little grin on its face, like, I'm watching you, and you're like, what? I remember looking back, and, you know, I've kept an eye on that tree line for years. I've never had that light reflection before. I know my yard, like the back of my hand. And, man, it was just a really weird thing. And it just felt like you're being watched. Now, one memory that I'm trying to go chronologically here, I was like 16 or 17 later on. Again, I'm home alone. My parents were both out of state working, and I was mature. I, could handle myself, make my own food, tend to myself. And this memory just makes me like, oh, it was like August or July. It was hot. I'm sleeping. And in the middle of the night, I just hear this long, loud, lion-sounding wolf howl. And it was so loud, it woke me up with a startle. I'm just laying in bed. And it was just like this. And it went on like for 10, 12 seconds. And I was just laying there going, what was that? And I've heard a lot of coyote howls. I've been out west. I've heard wolf howls. Yeah, I've watched National Geographic, and I'm like, I've heard lion roars, and you're like, okay, that's nothing I've ever familiar with. I remember driving my little Crooked 22, and I went outside, and my dog sleeping outside. It's summertime. He shed like a fiend. He's laying in his crate going, what was that, Dad? And I just shoot around the air just to deter anything. But let's be honest, anything that big probably wouldn't care. So I went back inside and tried to sleep. So that was my earlier experiences. I do recall hearing some weird sounds, like I've heard the woman scream. Could have been a mountain lion or bobcat. I've heard what sounded like someone yelling for help, but it was really late in the evening. And like, 7 o'clock on October or November night, I thought, well, did someone fall their bow stand? And I ran to get my dad. He goes, I don't hear anything. You're making it up. And it just sounded like this really mocking help sound. So that was that earlier experiences. Let's fast forward to 2020. I really got out of the Bigfoot thing. I lost interest in it. I just accepted it's either alive or it's not. And I'm content with that. I just live my life. And of course, I came across more First Nation based podcasts like Xeno Hunters on YouTube. And then I've been listening to your buddies, Don't Whistle at Night podcast, fantastic stuff. But things of that nature, just understand, that's out of curiosity. Well, what do the first people say about this being? And I was more interested in listening to them because they just knew. And so I have slight interest, but not like the interest of going out looking for. I just was interested in the stories. And I remember being on my farm. It was 2020, and I had this beautiful sunflower plot out for dove hunting. And I get off of work. I just want to run down there, take some pictures, just hang out, enjoy the beauty of an August evening. And at the time, my neighbor raised hounds, and they were just going nuts, barking and barking. And then this sound came from the east, and it shut everything up. It sounded like a fake bark, but very big. And it was like this boom, 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 like it was mocking them. And everything went quiet. The hounds shut up. The birds went quiet. The crickets went quiet. And I was like, it's time for me to go home. So later on, I want to say early 2021, I heard a weird noise from the woods. I live outside. I live in another county, not too far away from my home. And I live kind of a busy highway, but there's a lot of timber across the road, to the west, open farm country. Across the road, it's more urban and some houses and timber, a good large tract of timber. And I was taking my dog out, and it was, 10 o'clock at night. It was kind of a early thaw. It was January thaw. The snow's melting. It's like 50 degrees at night, one of those random warm thaws we get in January. And it's really quiet. It's January evening. And so I'm listening to this, what sounds like radio chatter coming from the woods. It was just like this. And I'm like, what is that? And I kind of thought about it. In my local mechanic and a buddy of mine lived across the road at the time, they never had the radios on. My mechanic next door, he's got an insulated pole barn. You only hear the music when you go in. And my buddy, he's been there for at least a year, and he never plays his radio. And I'm like, did he leave his radio on? But it sounded so it's coming from the woods. So I just kind of left it at that. Washed my hands of that one, took my dog, went inside. So I believe my next experience would you describe it? It was like third person experience. So I actually took a break from my career. Just wasn't going very far. Got a normal job. And then I had a lot of opportunities that brought me back into the forestry work. And I got my first timber jobs in a long time, not too far away from Lockridge. I would say between where I live at now and that Lockridge area. I was going to this job, and I had my truck and trailer and four-wheeler, and this red Chevy pickup was following me down the road to my timber I'm working on, and I'm like, what's this guy need? So I get to the gates, and I get out, and this gentleman hops out of his truck and goes, are you trapping? And I used to trap. I told him, sir, I've trapped a long time. He goes, I'm just here to do some timber work. He goes, oh, you're working in there? I said, yeah. And he goes, oh, that timber's spooky. Well, what do you mean? And he goes, I got chased out of there. I go, really? And he goes, do you believe in demons? And I've had demonic encounters several times in my life. And I'm like, well, yeah. He goes, I don't know, it's a demon. Maybe it's Bigfoot. And I'm like, I guess you never know. And, I did not brush this gentleman off. A good friend of mine used to have the podcast, Mark, and the Ghost of Me podcast is the current one. And his partner at the time, she was from North Carolina. And she always said this, and stuck with me. And it just a new level of respect for elders. So where she lived in North Carolina, she was a waitress at a cafe. And she said it was very common to hear the guys at the table planning their fishing trip up the creek, and some old timer come over and go, now, boys, be careful. I saw a Bigfoot the other day getting a drink of water. You all be careful. And they just said, okay, sir, thanks for the heads up. They just treat it as just like seeing a deer. And they're always respectful about it. And so I just shook this man and said, well, sir, I appreciate the heads up. And he goes, oh, you bet. I had everybody get chased out of here. And I was in that timber when it got dark. This sensation came over me like, it's time for you to leave now. And I just remember that feeling. I'm like, okay, it's time for me to go. And I recall one time in this timber, I'm doing a thing called hack and squirt. It's you take a hatchet and a bottle of chemical, and this timber is really overstocked with elm and ironwood, and you're just hacking these trees without having to drop them down, setting it back to let the sunlight come in, forest regeneration come about, orbs and baby oaks and stuff like that. And so you're whacking a hatchet against a tree, so it makes thunk, thunk, thunk sounds. So I'm whacking these trees. I hear thunk. Way off. Now, where I'm at, Southeast Iowa is populated. There's areas, there's not a lot of houses, but, 3 to 5 houses is pretty normal between homes, and sometimes more in between. So where I'm at, I'm like a mile back in from the road to this timber. There is no houses nearby. And I'm like, I heard one whack with a hammer. And that's why I'm thinking, like, someone working on something. I never heard another knock, but I thought it was weird that here I am hacking, I hear this thunk, and I thought, Now, let's see. I'm trying to keep my time dates straight. I believe, let's jump to the fall of 2023. I'm at my farm, and I'm doing a thing called basil bark spraying for an invasive job I'm doing for my farm. And basil bark spraying, you're mixing diesel with a chemical called triclopyr, mainly focused on multiflower rose and honeysuckle invasive species. So it's a nice October day. It's partly cloudy. And it's warm. I'm in a t-shirt, beautiful timber, and I'm just working away. And my neighbor's dogs, different neighbor, closer, his 3 dogs are just going nuts. They're barking and barking to hear me walk around the leaves. And then I hear this long, drawn-out whistle. And again, the dogs went quiet. It was like, and it went on for like a good 3, 5, 8 seconds. And I was like, oh, man. I'm very stubborn. I'm like, I ain't leaving. I got to get this job done. So that was just so profound how everything went quiet. And I asked my buddy later, like a year later, I'm like, we're hanging tree stands. I told him the story. He goes, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. I don't have a whistle. That's why I thought he was doing something. And it came from the inside of my timber, like south central part of my timber, if you're looking on the map, essentially. But anyway, so then a week or two later, it's like November. We've had a front come through. It's kind of partly cloudy, and it's kind of snowing. It's trying to rain. It's that beautiful ambient light. This is the thing that really stopped me in my tracks. There I am, basil bark spraying on this little ridge. All these black locust trees are at. It's really thick. And I'm spraying, and I have this tree in the corner of my eye, and what I thought was a vine moves And what appears to be a hairy, long arm with 5 fingers unravel itself around the tree, and it hides behind the tree. I stop in my tracks, and I'm like staring at this tree after in the corner of my eye saw this. And I'm staring at this tree for a good 2 minutes. And I'm like, there's no way I just saw what I thought I saw. I remember walking over to that tree. I looked around all sides. Nothing was there. And I will never forget that movement. And that really stuck with me for a long time. So far, nothing like that, but that hairy arm. I will tell you this much. You are not alone in the woods in Buren County. I will leave that there. So now it gets funny. After you and I talked on my podcast, when I interviewed you, things really got ramped up, and I don't quite know why. Because I think I told you the night after we did our interview, I took the dog outside, 10 o'clock roughly. This is January, I believe. Maybe late December, I don't quite remember. But this lightning bolt comes out of nowhere into the timber. And just this random storm. Didn't even storm. It's this really quick thing. And I'm like, what does that mean? You know, it was just like, what does that mean? So then things started happening. I remember going on my farm in January for our late muzzleloader season. Didn't see a deer. I got to take a right, take a left, take another right. And I'm looking at my neighbor's timber. I'm just driving by, see what's going on. It's getting late. It's, I'm at, past the shooting light. And I see this in the timber. It's like this, I believe, a silvery looking light, blue silver light. I'm like, oh, someone's got down for the tree stand. Well, then I'm going around the corner. I see another silver light, and I see an amber light. I was, oh, there's a lot of people in there. But what struck me is there's no vehicles. And I know neighbors. I don't know these particular people, but I've been down this area long enough. When people hunt there, there's always a vehicle parked on the road or parked in the hayfield, and just light enough, there's no one there. And I thought, so either people are hunting, or maybe these are the orbs that folks are talking about. It's like, I'll make a note of that. So then we get to spring and early winter and whatnot. Oh, I will say, I didn't get this person's permission, but I did reach out to a person that you've had on your show. They've been very helpful to me. So if you're listening, thank you for your help. But I did reach out to this person after you and I talked, and I explained to this person, I said, hey, it sounds like you have connections with these forest people, as they describe them as. And I say, I'm in this habitat work. I'm really into restoring native habitat, oak savanna, but I have to use a lot of chemical. Does that bother them? I'm just curious what you know about that. And this person replies back, and they go, oh, and I'm not bragging, okay? I'm taking what this person shared with me. They said, oh, they like you. Oh, my, they like you a lot. And I'm like, excuse me? They said they don't like the chemical, but they understand why you're doing it because it's such a big help. All those native plants, that's their medicine. They're lacking in that, and they really appreciate it. Like, I'm sitting there looking at my phone, reading their message. Just the idea of being watched like the other ones, and you have the idea back in your mind, like, am I alone out here? And then, it sounds like you're fulfilling a purpose, and more than just conservation. I mean, I'm a passionate conservationist. I mean, I brag about this, San County Almanac from Aldo Leopold sits next to my bedstand like my Bible. I mean, I take it very seriously. It's part of my life. But then knowing that, is there something else out there that is reaping the benefits? And I hope there is. I think that's wonderful. But so, that's in the back of my mind. And I do listen to your podcast a lot when I'm out in the timber. And I'm very aware, is it a possibility your podcast, or just this stuff in general, influencing my experiences? Something pops up that's non-Bigfoot related. And you're like, oh, okay. So anyway, I'm trying to keep my story straight where it happened next. Let's mention the feathers. So as you're working in the timber, there's a variety of tools, chainsaws, hatchets, and I would, park my four-wheeler, and I'd go in, and occasionally chainsaw gets stuck, or a new bar gets pinched or whatever. And there'd be so many times I'd be walking back to the four-wheeler 3 or 4 times, and all of a sudden I see a feather laying there or sticking out of the ground. And I'm like, oh, a hawk must have flew by. Well, then it kept happening. And I've been in the woods a long time. I mean, ever since I moved down to Van Buren, since a teenager, I'd be out there hunting, imagination, just going for walks. I can't tell you how many times I found a hawk feather. It's not always common, but I found like 3 or 4 my whole, 20 years being down here. But then I started finding more and more. And it'd be one of those things like I remember, one day my chainsaw broke down, telling my wife what's going on, I'm calling her, and I'm pacing back and forth as I am right now. And I remember seeing a feather. I turn around again, it's gone. So it's like, boom, it's here, boom, it's gone. And you're like, what the heck is going on? And the one day, you and I talked about this, my other friend talked about this, the long day, I'm trying to wrap up the timber project, and I'm just trying to get this sucker done. And back and forth, 5 or 6 times on his deer trail. And there's a feather sticking out of the ground, and it wasn't there just no more than 2-3 minutes ago. And I get down and I grab this feather and I look at the stem where the feather comes out of the bird's, wing. There's dirt on it, meaning that it was placed in there. I feel this super surge of positive energy overwhelm me, and I feel like this hand on my shoulder very, very briefly is a very faint hand. I've been touched by a ghost, okay? And it's a weird sensation. It kind of felt like that there's something there, but there's nothing here I can see. And you're like, going on right now. So, and at this same place, I recall seeing stuff like how can I describe this? You mentioned about the Predator look, from the Predator movie, that wavy vibration.
Yep.
I've seen that, but shorter. So I'd be driving forward, all of a sudden there's like this little 3 to 4 foot tall wavy thing going right in front of me. And I'm like, well, was that a little guy or is that a spirit? Is that a little person? I don't know, but it'd be very distinct. Trying to think if there's anything else to mention before I move on from this area. I thought there was one more thing that was this one was kind of crazy. So I listened with Dr. Love. I believe recently she was on Flash of Beauty.
Yep.
And I haven't listened to that one yet. And she, left some really cool pearls of wisdom. And one of them was, well, you should pray for him. And I'm like, well, why not? So I'm at this job I'm about to begin, and I say a little prayer, Lord, be with our forest people friends, give them lots of blessings and love. And Jeremiah, I hear this call come out of behind me. It's like, da, 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 da. And I'm like, just stop. And I'm just listening. And I'm like, that either was a really pissed off squirrel, a big raccoon, or something else. But it's 10 o'clock in the morning. And like most, like raccoons, they're done for the day. They're hunkered down. It's so cold out. They're not quite moving. And the squirrels, sure, but, usually it's like a couple little barks, not this long, deep chatter. It sounded big, and I'm like, well, here we go. And another time this timber, I remember hearing voices, and I don't hear voices, by the way, but it sounded like people talking, and I know on this farm, I am in the middle of nowhere again, and there's nobody around. Laner would let me know they were coming. I wouldn't have been there if they were hunting or whatever, and maybe say hi, but it was just like people talking very lowly, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of interesting. I'd have gone gifting at a couple of these spots in my place, and nothing has really taken them except maybe raccoons and stuff. I don't go through the notions of hanging stuff in trees. I just leave where I feel I should at. But I've been to some spots where I try to hide them, that raccoons get to them. I've gone back and look a few days later, it's still there. And I was texting my friend, and they're like, yeah, the alpha or clan leader, if they don't trust you yet or don't like you or they don't know you, they will not allow their members to take these gifts. So I'm like, well, that's interesting. That's good to know. So I was just kind of I thought was interesting. Okay, I think that's kind of it for this area. So I'm doing a tree planting at Lockridge, and springtime's always busy. And, I was kind of doing these old daily short little prayers, and, it feels kind of funny because I don't even know these guys. The experience I've had so far, I've just accepted there's something out there, and I want to be on their good side. And just out of I would like to connect with this being at some point, and just to verify I'm not losing my mind here. So, but I got slacked on praying for these guys. It'd be a short 30-second little, 15, 30-second prayer. And I'm out there working, and I'm pounding, planting these trees, putting the tubes up. And then I remember coming across this strip of rabbit fur. There's no blood. There's nothing there. It's just this strip of rabbit fur laying there. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. And I remember going back to get something, that rabbit fur was gone. And then another day, I'm back there, and I'm in Amish country, just so you know. I'm, again, down a dirt road. The neighbors are all Amish folks. They got chickens. This means something. So I'm clear back, and this is small, partial. It's very tiny. So I'm clearing the back end of this little timber parcel. I'm 200 yards away from this Amish person's house. And one of my stakes, my timber stake, my tree planting stakes, there's a chicken feather on the stake, the fiberglass rod. And I'm texting my friend going, what do you think about this? And this person says, well, they want their prayers back. They take prayers very seriously. And you should, just a reminder, we're still here. Okay. So I remember going back up to get some more stakes. And I thought, I'll say my prayer real quick. So I said my little prayer. I'm looking off. And then I hear some really big run. And I look really, really quick. And what appeared to be this big brown blob, I mean, it's running fast. And it wasn't a deer because this little piece of timber, there is no deer. I mean, it's open. It's not great. I don't find any deer beds in this particular spot. I mean, it's 2 or 3 acres. It's a very, very small parcel. And I'm like, okay. I remember messaging you. You're like, would you find any tracks? And I didn't think to look, but also everything's so much grass and leaves. I mean, it's really hard to find a track. So I think they'll show me when they're ready. Now you kind of agreed to that, I recall. So then it came to the ugly part. This is my least favorite part of a tree plant. I find it so ironic, but you got to do it. You got to spray around the baby trees with the tubes up, of course, so you can set back the competition so they get the roots going. Now, luckily, I only had to spray where the brome on the edge was. The inner timber stuff I could leave alone, thank God. But I had to really take out the more competitive plant community to give these trees a chance because those roots underneath do matter. And so I was just saying out loud, guys, I'm so sorry if you're here. I'm so sorry. I hate this. I don't want to be spraying this stuff. I'm so sorry, And maybe it's for my own conscience because I feel guilty about it too. But it's part of the job we do sometimes. And I'm getting near back where I found that chicken feather at. And I come across this pokeweed plant. And this is where I get kind of uncomfortable because this is where I start feeling these sensations. They're not voices. They're like a feeling. And it's really strong. And so I'm looking at these pokeweed. And I hear like this grumpy old man voice in my head going, you can kill those. We don't like it. And it kept saying it. I eventually sprayed the pokeweed and it stopped. And I was like, well, that was kind of weird. I remember thinking about my actions. I'm driving home and I'm down these roads. I always think about what did the land look like before the settlers came here? That's always been in the back of my mind. I think any conservationist mind is back of their head. And I heard this grumpy old voice say, well, I'll show you. And I started going into a trance as I'm driving. I said, no, we're not doing this right now. I don't know what's going on, but stop. And I came out of it because I'm like going down this curve, steep hill in a curve. I'm like, no. We're not playing this. I don't know what's going on. But you got to stop. And I messaged my friend like, hey, are you familiar with pokeweed? And this person says, well, yeah, that's like their weed. And I said, I don't think we're talking about the same thing. So I sent this person a picture and they go, oh, no. They don't like that stuff. They think that stuff's garbage for them. Okay. And that's the same weed they're referring to. And people know what I'm talking about. It's just a purplish, stalkish plant. It's a wonderful early successional plant, bird plant. And it produces berries. I like to leave them alone for the birds. But anyway, they don't like them apparently. So, okay, I think we're done at Lockridge. That was the most profound things there. Now we're back at my farm again. This is it gets interesting. So I kind of forgot, but did I tell you about the mole story on our last conversations?
I'm following along with your map that you sent me, and I was thinking, I can't remember the mole thing, so I don't know if we actually talked about that.
It was really brief. So again, I'm in my timber. I'm attacking this black species. It's very invasive. I'm hacking it. And it started to rain. I'm like, I better wrap this up. I come across this little stream on my place, and I've known about it, but things have changed from the management so much on my farm. You can actually access a stream. And it's this really pretty little spot. You have these 2 big white oaks overlooking the creek edge. And it's just like, 2-3 steps you're across it, and but it was just really pretty. And I was sitting there and I thought I need to head home. I turn around and again, I just walk down this thing. I'm walking back up. Now keep in mind, this is mid-May. There's a point I'm bringing this up. There's a dead mole laying there. This time of year in May, what's having its litters? Bobcats, coyotes, and foxes. They really heavily on moles, fawns, gophers, mice for their young. No coyote or any other predator would leave a morsel like that left behind. And I sent this picture to my friend. I said, hey, again, one of those things, I'm walking by, nothing there, walking back, here it is. And this person has special abilities, as they say. And this person says, apparently one was munching on it, didn't like it, spit it out. And I'm like, oh God, it's just, like, maybe, but I'm also like, could I have missed it? But again, it's one of those things like, I was just walking by here. I didn't see it. And this is right here. It's freshly dead. It was just a weird thing. So later on, like a week or two later, I thought, okay, I'm going to go gifting. And I treat this pretty seriously. I look at these guys are really real. I'm in their territory. I'm going to be respectful. So I leave my phone, my hatchet, my bottle of herbicide, my gloves, all in a pile. I say my little prayer. I'm going to my gifting spot. And again, these sensations, the best way I can describe it, how it comes over, it feels like this, a chasm of energy open up in your chest, and it just expands over you. And this feminine voice comes over and says, we really appreciate your conscientiousness. We appreciate you being so conscientious about this, but you don't have to go such extremes. We would really prefer it if you gifted at the oak trees you found. And I'm struggling because I'm thinking like, okay, am I really hearing this right now? It's just all in my head. And it was such a strong sensation. I'm like, I'm going to trust my instincts and just go with it. So I put my stuff back on because I got to go back to this spot where I need to start hacking at. And I leave a little, I think it's garlic, does a bundle of garlic in this root system like I was instructed to. And I go across the stream, and again, I hear this grumpy man voice coming over my head again. And I'm hacking these black logs, and he goes, what are you doing that for? And so I'm trying to kill these trees, and I'm just talking aloud so I can, bring back plant community. He goes, well, you don't have to use that stuff. I go, well, how would you do it? And he goes, put your hand on the tree and tell you don't belong here. Just imagine that tree going back to the ground. Now, look, I humored my intuition or whatever this voice was. I went back a few months later, there's a little black locust sapling. It did not work, but it was a cool idea. I'm like, that's interesting. And so now this corner of my farm, I have 3 or 4 acres of fallen cedar trees. We cut them down to open up the early successional for the plant communities again, brooding birds and all that good stuff. And I'm getting deeper in these cedar piles, trying to get as many black logs as I can before I had to go home. And I started hearing what sounds like pig grunts. And keep in mind, there is a hog confinement across the road from my farm, about like 400 yards away. I can only hear these hogs is if they're feeding them and they're squealing like mad, or right next to the confinement, like across my fence or something. Sounds like this. And it was so weird because every time I hit a tree, I heard this. And I'm okay, what's going on here? This is my farm. I know this place back in my head. I've never had this happen before. And that's when the woods get kind of quiet. And I'm like, okay. And then this is the part I just sound like a complete nut job, but bear with me. In my mind's eye, I kind of picture these 3 big black Bigfoot standing around me. And I'm like, okay, I don't hear anything. Washed really heavily. And his other voice comes over and says, you've gone too far. You see that deer trail over there? Take it back to the logging lane, and go back the way you came. You're too close. I'm like, it's all good. I'm just going to head out. It's time to go home. And so I follow these instructions. But when I get down this deer trail, I'm trying to leave, this other angry voice comes over, and it sounds like, he's got the poison. He's got the poison. Okay, I'm getting out of here. And, I'm really, again, I'm the kind of guy, like, am I really experiencing this right now? Like, is this really happening right now? Is this in my head? And I'm very acceptable. Maybe I did. And so I fall down this logging lane, and I get to this bent elm tree. And I sent you a picture of it the other day. They're like, oh, look at this. And I want to point out, as a forestry contractor, it is very common for trees to bend themselves trying to find sunlight. So if you have a heavy canopy, and that little tree is not getting sunlight, it will go in weird shapes to get to the sunlight. Like I sent you a video yesterday of a tree doing just that. It was being oppressed by bigger, mature trees. Now this tree, plenty of sunlight for it to grow straight. And again, this is when this grumpy old man voice comes in my head, and I'm like, okay, I got to get out of here. I'm losing it. And it said, like, you got a little too close. We got some families back here. You can come back. You were talking out loud about maybe burning this, which is great, but you got to leave. You can't come back till September. We'll be out of here. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go home. I'm going to lay down. This is a lot. And that was a profound mind speak, you can call it, that happened to me. And it was just a weird thing. And I'm very content saying either it did happen or didn't happen. It's just a very strong sensations, and I took heed. So a month or so goes by, and I'm working at a neighbor's place doing the brush management. It's like late June, pretty warm. It's buggy, a lot of growth, difficult to walk through. And I'm walking along looking for honeysuckle, and I'm along these train tracks. And I'm not too far away from the road, but I'm a good, 500, 600 yards away from the road. So you're close enough, you can still hear traffic go by. And I'm listening to Meat Eater. So not even your podcast, right? Mine's I am in Bigfoot at the moment. And I happen to look over, and I see this teepee-looking structure on their side of the railroad tracks. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. There's no way that's what I think it is. And so I put my backpack down. I hop the fence. I don't care, railroad. I'm going to check it out. And I go walking over, and it just looks like one of these structures you guys talk about. And I see a healthy tree and what looks like a bunch of little trees with no root systems. They look like they've been, peeled apart or whatever at the bottom. And they're all leaning against this tree. There's like 3 or 4 or 5 of these things. And I'm like, okay, I look over to the right of this structure. And what it looks like, I don't know how you want to describe it, Jeremiah, but they look parallel to the ground. Again, very likely they could have grown like that due to the pressure and the lack of sunlight, but they're all like laying flat down, and they kind of create this canopy, and all these mulberries are dropping on the ground, and you see all this animal sign like raccoons, deer, but it looks like a lot of disturbance underneath, like someone's been wrestling down there and tearing stuff up, and I'm like, wow. So I said, look, guys, I'm going to take some pictures. I'm going to get out of here. This is really unique and a blessing to see this, and I'm just going to leave you be. So I took some pictures, sent them to you. And then I get back to work, and I'm just very kind of at a loss of words. Like, is this what I think it is? On a railroad? And it's timber. It's all timber, and no one goes back there. And I'm like, well, sure. Not even railroad. You can't see the railroad. It's down an embankment, So I started walking, and I just happened to look down, and I see this little 5-toe track. And I get down. I sent you the picture. You could barely see the toes. It was a really wet summer. We haven't had a lot of rain for a couple of years, and I think all the moisture is showing these tracks more. Dry years, nothing leaves an imprint really. And I get down and I measure, a little bigger than my hand, which I don't know. My hand's like, 5 inches, 6 inches, I don't know. And then I take a picture. That I go back to work, and again, I had a bigger track, which is, I don't know, my footprint's 11, 12 inches, and this thing is probably 16, 18 inches long. And you find toes, and I left the stick there to kind of show where it ended at, and I was like, I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, am I wanting to see this, or is this already here? Is this really what's going on? And I remember the next day, I was just hanging out with kids or watching a movie. I'm just sipping some afternoon coffee, and this thought occurred to me. All of my best clients have been super patient, eager for me to get in there, begging me to get in there. They're just good quality people. But at the same time, I find interesting all these clients are very eager to get their timber managed and easy to work with, quick to pay, always a big plus. And I thought, what if these guys are tapping into the subconscious mind, directing these certain landowners, maybe not just me, other contractors as well that have a passion for this stuff, to manipulate the habitat to make it not just for them, but better for wildlife. Because if you think about it, the more wildlife they have, that means there's more food source for them to eat, and the medicinal plants, that's huge. And I don't know, I just really struck me as very bizarre, and like, what an interesting thought. And things have slowed down quite a bit. I found a couple more tracks. One was on the same farm on another one. I was at this lady's timber, and it was gorgeous. It was what a healthy timber looks like. No invasive. It's perfect. And I just met this lady for the first time. I'm walking and following her to her stand, and I look down, and there's another track right there. And again, super patient, not eager to get done. She's just like, whenever you get here's great. I'm like, okay. And I'm back at the timber now. I have those experiences with the feathers. I just got back there. And Jeremiah will tell you, this timber is gorgeous. It's an honor to be there, but it is deathly silent. I hear crickets. There's not a single bird in this timber stand. I've never been to timber that is so silent. It's odd, but it's calmly soothing at the same time. So that's been the experiences thus far, and that's all I got to say.
It's incredible to hear the whole story together because, yeah, we've been chatting for quite a while and you always send updates and stuff, but to hear it all together, it's really interesting how it has progressed over the last few years. And it's, man, and to know that, it's happening in Van Buren County, which if you look at the whole picture with Van Buren, I've gotten reports going back easily 80 years. If you look at the whole picture.
Oh, wow.
So because there's a gentleman I talked to off record who he said his grandparents lived in Douds area. They would tell him about something called what they would call the Yehudis, which were a giant type thing that were seen around the 1940s in Douds.
You're giving me goosebumps. So my farm's not terribly far away from Douds.
Right, because I'm looking at like the Onyx, but also like the everything together, and it's like, oh my goodness, because his stuff is there, Douds is there, but then you've got Lacey Keosauqua is like right in the middle of the county, and that's where all the dogmen are seen, and that's where this guy in the late 80s had some crazy Class A's that I talked to a few days ago. It's just, and then you got Shemek, which Shemek is crazy too. That's kind of down the corner, but my goodness, Van Buren is just a wild place when it comes to Bigfoot. You kind of mentioned you were driving and they were like, well, we'll show you. And then you started to like have this phase out thing. So have they shown you things, or was that the first time you've experienced something like that?
So since you asked, I will be honest.
Okay.
This is where I'm going to be. I'm not sure how to share this because if anyone's listening, like, this guy's out of freaking rocker, I don't want him on my phone. Well, they might want me around for a novelty. I don't know. This guy talks to Bigfoot. So I think I've had one talk to me regularly. And again, it's a very pleasant conversations. It happens 2 or 3 times the past year. I don't feel like I should say its name. It's mentioned its name, and I don't want to say it because I just don't feel like I should. But I was home in the evening and I was thinking about this, and this one I've talked to 2 or 3 times, this is the second time probably, said, is this a good time to show you what it looked like? And I'm like, please. And, I've gone into some deep meditations, Jeremiah. Like I meditate almost every other day. And I can get really, really deep, like so deep it feels like you're swimming down to the abyss and you have to swim back up to come back out of it. It takes me a couple minutes to come out of my meditations. So when this happens, it feels like a meditative, deep meditation. I closed my eyes and I immediately saw myself on these plains. But, back in the day, we had oak savanna, and imagine the savannas of Africa, but instead of a baboa tree, you have oak trees. And there are remnants across most of Iowa, the Midwest, and you'll see those gigantic oak trees, these gigantic canopies. It was open back in the day. It was all prairie and shrubs, and that's been historically documented. But in this vision, I'm seeing everything. I'm seeing bison, I'm seeing elk, I'm seeing white-tailed deer, and it's just this beautiful, painting of prairie plants and these shrubs, these big-tooth aspen trees, and there's prairie willows scattered around, and you're like, wow. You see the First Nation people migrating across the landscape, and then they start showing me the settlers coming, and what they showed, I've always had a hunch about this. I don't know if there's any scientific evidence to back this up, but they showed these oak trees talk to each other, and it's like a communication, like a big network, and the network is kind of through mycelium. That's scientifically proven, but the tree part I'm not really sure about. but these trees connect to each other, and it's like this gigantic living network, living ecosystem, but it's all interwoven together. And when the settlers started to plow up the prairie, they disturbed that connection, and that's why some timber stands are just really disturbed. Either they weren't timber and it grew up into timber, really nasty timber, and there's some areas where it's just overstocked. Things are just not being taken, and things are not being managed properly. There's no animals like bison and elk disturbing these. There's no fire, which was really critical back in the day. But also the energy is all tied up. And that really spoke to me, because it was kind of a hunch. And I don't know if that's true about the trees communicating with each other, but it felt like a movie. It's just like I'm seeing these, sweaty pioneers get the prairie plowed up, but you see the disturbance that happen underneath, and you're like, wow. So that was a profound moment for me. And I haven't even shared that with my wife. I told her a couple things. I told her all these stories, but this one I was kind of like, I don't know if she's going to go for that one. It felt like meditation, but I don't know.
That is very intense. And I appreciate you sharing that, because I know in this subject, there's things that happen. That's one of them where it takes a lot to share things like that in a public forum, and it's appreciated for sure.
Absolutely. Who asked? I'll tell you.
Right, exactly. Have you talked to other individuals that do similar work to what you do, and are they having other weird things happen?
I have one very good friend of mine. I like to talk to him. He doesn't do the contract work. He's more of a consultant. And I text him out of just pure throw a dart at the tree. And I said, have you had weird experiences in the woods, and have you had landowner open up to you? He simply said yes. And I said, when we have a free moment, let's sit down at a campfire and you can share. No judgment. I want to hear it all. My other fellow contractors, I don't think I have never asked them. And I know them pretty well. They're all really hardworking people, but they're very focused on what they do. Things could be happening. They don't realize it. And they might have seen some weird stuff, and they just press on like I have.
That's wild. What did that feel like when that person was like, yes? How did that affect you?
He's pretty scientifically minded. And he said that, I was like, oh, wow. And he's a great guy, good friend of mine for years. And I just like, we got to sit down and talk about this whenever you're ready, But yeah, it just felt like confirmation, and I'll be honest, it really sparked the interest again was our friend Connie. I mean, I don't know Connie, but when you had her on, I listened to those episodes. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I would like to ask more people questions, but it seems I've seen some posts of people trying to ask about Bigfoot and Van Buren, and they're shut down immediately, So it's, it'd be nice to meet more folks that are sound mind. Yeah, I think there's something going on. We just don't. I think this culture in Southeast Iowa is very protective, and I don't blame them, because it's funny when you go to Appalachia, those folks talk about like it's seeing a deer run by. But then over here, it's like, nope, it doesn't exist. I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to block it out. And that's unfortunate.
It is. And you run into that a lot where you try to ask in certain areas and you're just shut down. But sometimes, it just, you hear back a few weeks later. I mean, that's what happens to me when I try to go into certain small town Facebook groups or whatever. But something I was just wondering or just noticing on the map, I've never noticed that weird thing that the Des Moines River does in the center of the county. It is, It doesn't even make sense why it would it's this crazy curve, and Keosauqua is in the middle of it. And then you've got the state park. That's just so strange, dude.
It is interesting. I remember, I was brand new to the area. My friends would take me to the fireworks down there, Keosauqua. It's an awesome thing to do. And 4th of July, and I always going to comment, the river looks like going backwards. I go, yeah, it's a big curve, dude. And I go, oh yeah, you're used to, going downstream, and it looks like it's going the opposite direction.
Absolutely. And you hear from, or at least I hear from a lot of researchers that if you're wanting to find a Bigfoot area, look for the crazy curves in the river. And
that's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot from people. And so it's, I don't think it's really a coincidence that Lacey Keosauqua State Park is right there at that wild and crazy curve. I don't know, man. It's very, very strange.
Well, what's your thought on that? Why do you think that curve? Do you think it has a flow of energy and they just it kind of drives them up? I mean, what's your thoughts?
I don't know. I've been trying to, think through it for a few years now. And I just have no idea. It's usually like if there's a curve there and then there's a lot of there's a wooded area, but man, I don't know. Are there a lot of what's the geology like down there? Do you know anything about that?
Well, I mean, we have several lime quarries, so I would say a lot of our minerals are more limestone. I mean, we have the largest, lime quarry, I think, in the state, which is Douds, and listen to Connie's episode, it sounds like there's been encounters in those quarry caves, which is wild.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think in the interview we did, I don't know if you looked at it, but people should go check it out. If you look up the magnetic anomalies map of Iowa, which I'm not quite sure how that works, but shows like the magnetics, because the Earth has its own, frequencies and stuff like that. It's kind of really dark purple through most of southeast Iowa. It shows like there's a big anomaly of magnetics not coursing. I'm not sure how it works, I guess, but it was definitely an anomaly for most southeast Iowa, which I thought was really unique.
That is such a good idea. I have never thought to even look at a map like that. And oh my goodness, yeah, you're right. Yep. Wow, dude, that really makes you think, doesn't it? Have you run into other people in your county that are also into either this Bigfoot subject or Dogman and are actively researching the county?
No, I don't know anybody. The only guy I met was a gentleman who tracked me down, who claimed, man. Now there's something I didn't notice. Have you seen the Sasquatch silhouettes that people make? Like, the
yes,
laser cutter guys make?
Yeah.
Quite a few people have those, and they're cool. My wife won't allow it. Probably get shot at, probably. But I kind of wonder if that's a sign that perhaps they believe or have had an encounter, and that's just a quiet way of saying, yeah, I may have seen one. That's just a theory. I'm not sure that's true, but it's an interesting thought.
No, I think there's definitely something to that. It's so weird that the area is so active and there's no one else unless they're just being quiet about it, which is a possibility.
I think there's a lot of quiet people. I mean, dude, listen to Connie's story. It just sounds like don't talk about it. Don't say anything, And, look, man, it's rural Iowa. People, peers are everything. Your tribe is everything, and if the peer group doesn't agree, they're going to tell you, So it's, I don't know. I would really like to have a conversation with somebody. I would love to talk to someone from the Meskwaki settlement up in, I think it's Tama County.
Oh, yeah.
And just ask, what's your guys' oral history? I like to learn. I've looked online. I can't find much just on the forest people, but they do talk about forest spirits, but I would like to talk to one and just share. I'm all ears, no judgment. I just want to hear your side.
That would be super interesting. Have you ever considered looking into their powwow that they do? I don't even know if those are open to the public or how that works.
I don't know if they are. I would love to go to one, but I haven't looked yet. It's
a good idea to try because they're the ones that are going to have the definite information about that history of really the entire area. So I think that's a great idea.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think, if they weren't comfortable talking on your show, people's like Don't Whistle on My podcast, I'd be a great outlet just to talk about oral history stuff, if they were more comfortable that way. But no, I know one gentleman who is, I think he said he was Meskwaki descent. I would love to sit down with him. He's our one of our local towns, but want to be respectful, and just don't want to go up to somebody, but hey, that's not cool. So I just, it would be nice to meet somebody that has that oral history.
Jesse, you're having interactions as you work usually.
Yep.
Sometimes people will get to the point where they're like, okay, I want to actively go out and try to go to an area and see if I can have things happen. Or are you comfortable with sticking to how you're doing things where, if it does happen when I'm working in these certain areas, then that's what's meant to be?
I'm pretty comfortable just seeing what happens. I mean, I'm in their home and I'm trying to improve it. It's kind of weird because you feel like a contractor that's, hey, I'm going to improve your house. Well, I'm going to do it anyway. I have a Zen practice. I meditate, and, I've been told I have the heart of a child, and that's not supposed to be a derogatory thing. It's just I'm very open to curiosity. I'm open to things, and I get excited seeing baby oak trees. I dork out on this stuff, man, and I get excited planting new forgotten species that are native to our area. Like I got this little grove of big-tooth aspen, and see aspen trees back to native range is really exciting to me. And I get more excited seeing a woodcock do its dance than I do a big white-tailed deer. That's just my heart. And I think sometimes I go in expecting an experience, and I know that's not a healthy way to go about it. It's more I like to experience something else because my ego is like, oh, another story. But deep down, it's like I have always been the outcast because I'm not the typical hunter. I look at balance. I look at conservation. That's my number one goal. I don't care about the big white-tailed bucks. I mean, yeah, it'd be cool to harvest one, but I'm more interested in balance. So I shoot more does in my area, and I enjoy the meat. And I'm more eager about seeing more quail and turkey and other animals too. I get excited seeing different kind of moths. I mean, I'm a dork, but I have a love for the land. I think they connect when they think the time is right. And so I will just continue my work and just focus on the conservation work. And I'll be honest with you, if one ever showed itself to me, I don't know what I would do. I've prepared myself because Connie claims she's seen hundreds of them. And I'm like, that's wild to think about. And I just, I'm like, I don't know, did she? I don't know. I'm taking her word for it. But, it's like, what would I do? This 9-foot tall hairy dude shows up out of nowhere. And I'm like, oh, man, my biggest fear is how I will react. I've heard a lot of stories in your podcast, man. And betrayal seems like a really big thing, and which is for anybody. And the idea of like, I just do a fight or flight mode, it breaks my heart knowing I would break their heart, and that's the thing. I would like to meet one and just connect, but also listening to the Sierra sounds and some of your stories on your show, it's like, oh man, these guys are different, and I don't know. It'd be quite the sight for sure. And I'm prepared for that because you just never know. I mean, I don't know about these dog men. I don't know. I don't know. I've never met anyone. It's such a vague topic when there's so much more and more information on these forest people and so many more stories. It's kind of like this interdimensional being that just pops in and out occasionally, Anyway, no, to answer your question, I think I just focus on what I'm doing to stay at the focus task at hand and just see where the cards fall.
Absolutely. And I think that you are a human that is so focused on pretty much is saving the earth, the nature of the earth. I mean, that's what you do as a conservationist, and which is really cool. And I think that probably, plays to your favor as well.
I think there's a lot of merit in people opening up and talking about this subject in this area. And, it doesn't mean you have to be like, what's that one Bigfoot show with, it's a Squatch. You don't have to go out looking for this guy,
I don't know what you're talking about, but I can guess actually. Okay. Yeah, I get it. Sure.
Yeah. That show, the one back 15 years ago. Yep. We don't have to go looking for. We can just, there's people in this area that are like, I need to get this on my chest. We can have a campfire and have a meal and just share. I mean, I'm open to that. And just get it off your chest. I think that'd be really healthy. So,
I think I've heard of actually other people doing that in other states around the U.S. It's a great way for people. It's really therapy for people to just be able to have someone listen and not, make fun of them. But Jesse, I want to say, thank you so much for coming on. I'm glad we were finally able to have this conversation, and it'll be interesting to see, as your journey progresses, what happens next down in Van Buren County. But I wanted to make sure that you were able to share everything that you had come to the show to share today.
No, I'm very content. And Jeremiah, I really appreciate it. I was very blown away. You want to talk to me? I really sent you my stories. I'm like, if anything happens to me, and my wife's like, what the heck is this? I don't care about this. She's going through the computer that somebody has it. And, I'm out in the woods. I could get, stolen away by Bigfoot, or tree falls on me, or, fall asleep at the wheel, whatever, man. It's just like somebody has the stories, and I'll keep adding to them, hopefully. But yeah, I'm just really grateful you took the time to interview me today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just to address that, we have a back and forth because we have talked before. So, that's why I may be laughing a little bit. That's just because we're having a good time. But in all seriousness, these are very serious things. And, if people are experiencing things like this, they are welcome to reach out. If they need someone to talk to, they can always send me an email. But, Jesse, it's been a privilege talking to you. I do have one or two things to say off the air, but just thank you for coming on the show, man.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Every encounter we share reminds us that the world is bigger and stranger than we think, and that the truth is often hiding just beyond the tree line. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, hit the bell so you don't miss the next episode, and share this with a friend who's into mysteries, monsters, or the unexplained. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcast, please follow the show there and leave us a 5-star positive review, because all that helps more people discover the show. And remember, if you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot sighting, please, I'd love to hear from you. So email me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com and let's start the conversation. If you haven't gotten a chance yet, check out our membership community over at www.bigfootsocietypodcast.com. And that's where you can hear tomorrow's episode today, early and ad-free, and members-only episodes every week. Also, it's a place to connect with other people that are into the Bigfoot subject as much as you are. Thanks again for following along with the Bigfoot Society. Until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and never stop asking what else might be out there. And see you in the woods.